Well, China is an exception. Most countries have a good rapport with India. It's not by fluke, though. It's the result of consistent diplomacy. Look at what happened in Qatar. 8 Indian sailors had been jailed by Doha. All of them were former Indian Navy personnel, and the charges were quite serious. Some reports said espionage. At first, Qatar sentenced them to death. But India did not give up. New Delhi used quiet diplomacy behind the scenes, and today we saw the results. 7 of the 8 sailors are back in India. They have been freed by Qatar. How exactly did that happen? How did a death sentence turn to release? Listen to what the sailors think.
We're extremely grateful to the Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji. It certainly wouldn't have been possible without his personal intervention and that equation with the Emir of Qatar. I think we are grateful to the Government of India, the bottom of our heart, for the every effort that has been made, and this day wouldn't have been possible without it.
So diplomacy worked. The sailors think Prime Minister Modi personally intervened. Even the government has hinted at this. The External Affairs Ministry has thanked the ruler of Qatar. It has also said Prime Minister Modi was personally overseeing the issue.
We are grateful for their return. We are gratified on their return. We deeply appreciate the decision of the Qataris government and the Emir to release them. Honorable Prime Minister has himself personally, constantly supervised all the developments in this case and has never shied away from any initiatives that would ensure the return of Indian nationals back to home.
And what about the 8th sailor? He too has been released, but his return to India is still being worked out, so the job is almost done. Now let's take a step back and look at a few important questions. Why were these sailors jailed? Why was the case dropped? And what is the political impact of this diplomatic win? These sailors were arrested in 2022. All of them worked for the same company, Dara Global, in Doha. Now, Qatar did not reveal the charges against them, neither did India. But media reports said it was espionage. Apparently, they were spying for Israel. In the months that followed, India got consular access to these men. New Delhi tried to get them released, but no luck. In October 2023, the sailors were sentenced to death. India decided to appeal that verdict. Then in early December, a key meeting happened. Prime Minister Modi and Qatar's Emir were in Dubai. Both were attending the COP28 summit. They held a brief discussion on the sidelines, and chances are this issue, the issue of the sailors, was also discussed in that meeting. But did it work? Well, later that month, the death sentence was reversed. Around 50 days later, the sailors are back home. So I guess the Dubai conversation did work. But we don't know how the sailors were released. Was it a court deciding to free them? Or was it a pardon by the Emir? The Foreign Secretary refused to answer that question, but chances are it was a pardon. Qatar's Emir issues pardons twice a year. Most of the freed prisoners are foreigners, and India's statement vaguely hints at this. Let me quote from what India said. We appreciate the decision by the Emir of the state of Qatar to enable the release and homecoming of these nationals. Either way, it was a political call. Qatari courts do not randomly release alleged spies, not unless the Emir tells them to do so. But this success goes beyond just one short interaction in Dubai. It is the result of sustained policy, a genuine outreach to the Muslim world. And now is the perfect time to talk about it. Tomorrow, the Prime Minister of India is embarking on a tour, a foreign tour, possibly his last big one before the general election. And where is he going? The UAE and Qatar. In the UAE, he will inaugurate a massive Hindu temple and meet with the diaspora. In Qatar, he will meet the Emir, Tamim ibn Hamad Al Thani. Think of it as a gratitude tour. And that's been a feature of India's outreach. It's come at the highest level of government. Prime Minister Modi has visited the UAE 6 times. 2 of those visits came in the last 8 months. He's visited Saudi Arabia twice. Bahrain, Oman, Jordan and Qatar once. This will be his 2nd trip to Qatar. Now, these relations have been mutually beneficial. India is the 3rd largest oil consumer in the world. It's a key market for Gulf nations. Then you have the diaspora. Around 9 million Indians live and work in the Gulf. They're holding up local economies. Trade and investments are also important. The India-UAE trade is around $85 billion. The India-Qatar trade is worth $20 billion. A big chunk of that is LNG, that's liquefied natural gas. Around 48% of India's LNG imports are from Qatar, almost half. And last week, both sides renewed a deal. India will keep importing LNG from Qatar until 2048. That's the deal. It's a massive energy deal worth $78 billion. So there's a strong foundation to the diplomatic ties. Yes, personal outreach has helped, but the underlying foundation is also good. Sizable trade, solid investments, and a large diaspora. It's what we call a win-win relationship. The Gulf gets a reliable customer. India gets a foothold in a geopolitically significant region. Plus, it's a political statement. Western media has questioned the safety of Muslims in India, but the same Indian government is celebrated in the Gulf. Prime Minister Modi has received civilian honors from multiple nations there, like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Palestine. That investment has clearly paid off because Qatar takes espionage very seriously. And spying for Israel, it's a one-way ticket to the gallows. So this release is a big diplomatic win for India, a victory for quiet and mature diplomacy.